today's local discovery session. Before we jump into our working session for today, just going to give an update of our project status. We are currently in the first week of our sprint. We are working on building out additional application information, continuing to seed some service stuff and build out outcomes. Um, we are also getting started with some back end work for the getting started assessment that we did in Discovery a couple weeks ago. So a lot of good things going on in development this week. Um, Looking ahead, so starting today, we're going to be kicking off UAT for several items that we have ready to go, employment, education enrollments, and customer pre-record dedupe. Additionally, after the end of this sprint, we will be moving into UAT to look at training plan renewal and applications. We're going to continue to be moving through UAT with you all. We release UAT the week after the sprint ends, and our sprints are every 2 weeks. So these items will be covered bi-weekly. We'll be having UAT, and the in-between weeks, we will either be continuing to do discovery work with you all or reviewing UAT findings and having conversations about what we're seeing in UAT. So this is we have done several UAT sessions in the past, but this is kind of the first of our ongoing UAT from here on out. Now that we've defined enough and have enough developed, we're really in a place where we're going to be looking at things in the system as we continue to move forward. I'm going to pause right here and see if anybody has any questions on where we're at with just project status and where we're at in the process before I pass it over to Kelly to walk through today's UAT session. All right, if there's nothing else, then I'll pass it to you, Kelly.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm going to be stepping in for Al today. He had some other commitments, so I will be moonlighting as him to go through our UAT overview of the resources and everything. So I'll give you guys the demo as well. So let me get my screen shared. Okay. If someone can give me a thumbs up that you can see this screen.
I can see
Thank
it.
you. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to cover today is our UAT guide for Release 10, Cycle 1. This is going to be focusing in on three different smaller areas of the system, so kind of chunking out some different functionalities and different pieces. So we're going to go through those. Um, those are going to be our customer pre-record duplicate merge and outcomes for employment and education. So, as a reminder, I know there's some people that may be new to UAT that just joined us from the trainer group, but I know a lot of you have been involved in UAT up to this point as well. But we're going to go through a little bit more detail on like the UAT guide and how to use this. And we're also introducing some different style resources for this UAT to give you guys a peek at what quick start guides will look like for development of the system once we go live, those type of resources that you'll have, especially in the local offices and as trainers. So UAT guide here, you've got a table of contents up top, and then it starts going into our overview and the purpose and why we participate and conduct UAT. So you all are kind of the first line of defense to start testing the system and making sure it's meeting the requirements that it needs to be a system that you all will use on a day-to-day basis. So what we're going to walk through is a little bit more on this guide. So those of you that are newer to user acceptance testing, this is going to be due on February 12th. So we've got about 10 or so business days to get that done. Right here, you've got your access to the UAT environment. So this is your testing link. So you'll be able to click that and go in and start testing. And then as a reminder, you'll need to use the login piece now. Originally, we didn't have that. So you guys should remember on our most recent ones, you needed to log in. The phone number piece is still there at this current time to be able to verify that and get into the testing site. So Along with that, we double checked to make sure everyone's accounts were still like active since it's been a hot minute since we've done a UAT cycle. So you'll access that there. Within this note or within this document as well, we also have the UAT notebook link here, so you'll be able to click on that. And this is where you're going to be logging like the testing. So if it's working as expected, or if you ran into some like an error popped up that you weren't sure, or it let you add XYZ when it shouldn't have let you add XYZ. Those are the type of things that you are putting into the notebook for us for examples. So I'm going to go over that here in a moment in a little bit more detail, but the biggest thing here is just making sure that you're testing thoroughly, um, kind of testing down different tracks, but also being detail oriented. So if you do run into something, giving us kind of that step-by-step basis of what you did and what happened, that allows us to reproduce it if it is a bug or an issue that we need to get fixed in the system and get that documented so that it starts functioning the way that it needs to. And as you are testing, remember to think like the end user. So maybe you're not a career planner, but we want you to think through what that might be. Or if you have been one in the past, put your career planner hat back on to make sure you're kind of thinking from that mindset. Um, but then we will break down that feedback that you give us into bugs, issues, and enhancements. So bugs are the system not performing as expected, so we work on getting those fixed. Issues are whenever the system is performing, according to the requirements that we were originally given, but as we start playing around with it and start testing it, something comes to light that we're, this may need fixed, or maybe this flow isn't working like what as we expected. So those are the type of things that we may need to revisit, the requirements of what the system should do in that specific case. And then lastly, enhancements. Those are really like your nice to haves or like next steps. We categorize those based on like priorities with the state for having our MVP or minimum viable product once we go live. So if something doesn't go into development right away, it's something that's kind of on the backlog or list for us to get into the system eventually. Okay. What it's going to break down into next, and this is where our guides are going to look a little bit different than in the past, and I'll show you where the like step by step with like screenshot guides will be next. But our step by step guide here is going to walk you through without screenshots what you're needing to add. So you can use this supplemented with the quick start guides I'll be showing you, but this is going to break down your step by step. So I know some people do great with screenshots. Some people can follow these really well. But your step-by-step guides with screenshots, I'm going to show those here next. So, but this is going to break down for you, okay, adding employment occurrences, capturing education occurrences. There we go. Employment records. So it's going to walk you through those. We have found a couple little things I can call out here, but if there's like bugs or things that we've found that are already being worked on, they're noted here. So we have our team in a sprint currently fixing some of these things if it's noted. But that doesn't mean that you can't note it for us in the notebook. You absolutely can. So what we're going to go through next is the notebook. Let's see. So whenever you click on this notebook link up here, let me find it. This will take you to our UAT notebook. So you'll see the past releases here. We've got closed releases from past, but we've got your release 10 here. This is your check-in for participation. It helps us track, who's been in there, what participation looks like, if we need to push for more testing. So if you can please add your name, the date you tested, if there's any like overall comments or, you don't have to put anything here, but if you have some, go ahead. Otherwise, then it's going to break it down into those different areas that we are testing in the system for this round of UAT. So we've got your pre-record intake, it's the customer duplicate detection, which I will be going over here shortly. So if you, as you're testing that, being able to put, Kelly T, what day I tested, maybe I was in Chrome. Oh, living in the past. Um, Chrome, and then going through everything that, I wanted to give feedback on with relevant screenshots. So screenshots really help us if you have some of those for additional context on what you are giving feedback on. And that'll break down into these different sections here. Okay, if there's no questions yet on that, I'm going to give you guys a reminder before I hop into the demo itself. Um, our transition project page, definitely bookmark this because it does have the list of past recordings. It has sessions that we're doing. But then our full list of resources is where I also pin all of our resources that will be sent out in a, kind of email after this too. Um, we did redesign this page a little bit, and I'll get to your question here in just a second, Rory. We redesigned this page a little bit to make it easier based on feedback of kind of like where are at currently, because we do realize you guys have tested a lot of things. So we've got closed UAT resources here if you ever need to come back and look. Um, and then like other resources, those are things like Miro boards, like this one's like a PowerPoint if you ever need anything down there so that they're accessible. But the active UAT resources are kind of up here at the top. So I've broken those down into here's your notebook, here's our UAT guide that we just looked at, and then these are going to be the different quick start guides. So I can pull those up in a second. Rory, did you have a question?
I did, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you rush through that. I just real quick, I was gonna just ask. It would be something I would need to do probably offline, but um, uh, would I email if I had a question or an issue logging into the I login, the Okta screens and all that? Would I send that to Lynette if she's on the call?
Yeah, you can send that to Lynette and myself, and we can get you in the right direction if
Okay.
anyone else runs into that.
When we were doing that, weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago, I've been in, the UAT. It just I haven't been in a while, and when I went to go in earlier or at the start, just sometimes just to follow along sometimes if you guys are
Mhm.
demoing something. It was just asking me like, let's get started, register your account in a few steps. And I just want to make sure, I mean, I can do that again. I just didn't know if that would create some kind of like redundancy or something that would screw it up or something. So I'll email the screenshot of that to you and Lynette, and thank
Okay.
you. Obviously nothing urgent right now, but I didn't want to forget to ask who I should send that to. Because it could be something on my end that I just, didn't clear out uh, cache or temporary internet files or something, or might be
Okay.
something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if any of you run, I know it's been a bit since we've gotten into the system to test. So if you're running into any of those, you can send those to Lynette and myself, and we'll get you on the right track so you can get it and test. Okay, so that is kind of the redesigned page here, but the next thing I wanted to show you is we have the new like quick start guides. Now these are, an approved template that we have, but also kind of our first run at quick starts, right? So these are designed to be high level, but also be step by step. So they're not going to show you like in the weeds as much as the UAT document did, right? Because the UAT document here breaks it down into, hey, you're going to have to add all these, right? So it's not going to give as granular of a detail. But these are designed so that you can follow along and do the appropriate things to test. So, definitely can welcome some feedback on this from you all if you feel like there's areas that more detail is definitely needed, or if they provide enough to guide a career planner through. This could also be a good time to maybe work with someone in your office that's been, more removed from discovery and UAT and say like, hey, does this make sense? Like, how are you able to follow this? How does this look? Um, it might be a good opportunity to show them and kind of get their feedback and share that with me on the quick start guides. So these are what you're going to use in conjunction with that UAT guide over here, this guy. But these are your step by steps. So this one's going to break down, okay, we're going to do a duplicate customer search and merge files. We also have adding and editing employment outcomes and adding and editing education outcomes. So one note to make here, these links, these are designed so that we can use them when we go live. So these are production links right now that are not going to take you anywhere. So if I click this, it's because this is not technically live yet, but this is going to be that site when we get it stood up. Okay, because everything right now is in testing in UAT, not in the live production site. If that's confusing, I mean, I can definitely remove those as we go through these in future, but also trying not to give myself a lot of work to do later, if that makes sense. So, but definitely open to some feedback there, but just disclaimer, these links are set up to be live for when we get to July 1. Okay, any questions on resources, where to find those so far? Or are we ready to get into the demo?
Hey, Kelly,
Check
the
the
partner
chat.
page link in the chat.
What was that?
The partner page link.
Oh,
Going
yes.
on.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. It's another comment from Amy.
Okay. Yep, so I just put that link in the chat. That's a really good one to bookmark, and then that way you've got easy access to it. Okay, well, what we're going to go over first is the customer record like duplicate search. So this piece is designed to search where we have those self-service pre-screenings, right? So you guys have tested the pre-screen, and after that's done, where does that go? So there's a way to look in here at these self-service or this pre-record intake. And this is going to list you those individuals that have done a pre-screening. So in this case, if we're looking at our pre-record intake tab here, one thing to note right now, this search function does not search across all of these tabs. That's in development. So if you're searching and you're like, well, searched Adams here, and it narrows that down. But then when it come over here, it did not narrow it down. So that is something that we're aware of and getting fixed so that it searches across all customer application and pre-record intake. So let's say, Scarlett Adams here has come into the office and we're trying to discern if she has like a customer profile already, right? So when you search this pre-record intake, if she's like, I think I filled out something online, that's where you could come here to pre-record intake, take a look at her file here, and it's going to match up a few things. So, first name, last name, date of birth, and then it's going to return any potential matches. And this design is to make sure that we're not going to have as many like duplicate customers, things like that. So it's going to help cut down on that piece. So in this case, we're looking at Scarlett here. We've got two that came back here. So we've got Scarlett from 2008 and Scarlett from 1994. So in this case, if you are looking over here, if you hit view, it's going to show a quick view over here on the side where you can say and go over with Scarlett to make sure that, oh, yep, this looks like you. Are these still correct? Maybe she's got some like a new address, but you're able to then merge that information with her other record, or you can go to the record directly from here as well. But this whole process designed to cut down on those duplicate customers that have been something that has happened in the past.
So question, this is Robert. So
Mhm.
say they did not check that pre-customer thing. and they started, would it still, once you put that person in, would it show that this person is a duplicate within all three of those tabs?
I believe so. Olivia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would look at their email and kind of flag if they're already in there.
But just in case they use a different email, because a lot of time people keep on changing their email, but would it identify the birthday, something that they really don't
Mhm.
change the birthday and social security number?
Yes. So if they had been put in as, one email in 2.0 and then come in through self-service and use a different email, when we look to match those, we're matching on multiple data pieces. So just because our email doesn't match doesn't mean we won't find them and be able to merge them into one record, even if they had used two different emails for the records that we have.
Okay. One other thing to kind of go along with that question, Robert, if a career planner were to go in and like add a customer, it's going to also go through a duplicate customer search here too.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, but you could get past having to like enter those things in from the pre-record and like merge that information.
Okay.
Okay, great question.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Like if a customer, like finds the Illinois WorkNet site and just starts doing a pre-screening before it gets completed or sent to the local uh, the local job center. If that person maybe a few days later or a week later happens to just kind of walk in, and exchanges information with intake or resource room staff or something, and a staff person starts to try to enter that person in there. If they've already started a customer pre-screen or had started a footprint of their profile, this will find them, right? So this will
Mhm.
got it. Oh, good.
Perfect. Okay, so say too that you were in the pre-record and Scarlett actually like hasn't been in here before. This would down here, or maybe none of these match, and it's a different Scarlett Adams from 1985. You can add a customer here. So this, if they're not showing up down here where you can merge that information, you'll be able to click add customer, which will bring you to this says I verify that this is a new customer and a match is not found. So you would verify that piece.
Also on this same thoughts here. So say somebody went through the program, got employment, got all the good thing, and 2, 3 years later come back. Will they grab all that information from the previous and you just have to update what need to be updated to your knowledge?
Yes. So yeah, you would merge the information and then work with the customer to update anything that does need updated in their customer profile. Correct me if I am wrong on that at all, Olivia.
Nope. Yeah, if they had already been in, there's a couple different scenarios. They've already been in the system 3 years ago and either come into the office. You could find them as an existing customer in the profile and work with them through their existing profile, to serve them and go through intake. It'll maintain all their previous data and that we have on then that won't be lost. It'll still be there. They'll just need to redo an updated intake. Or they could have, been in 3 years ago and then found the welcome page we're building and come in through the self-service route on their own, using a different email than we have on file. If they do that, then you'd go through this same pre-record. They would be a pre-record through self-service, and you can merge that data into their existing IWDS profile. If the customers complete the self-service and they're using um, their email that we already have on file, we can connect that data if we have them on file. The main thing here at this pre-record is we're not going to just start creating a bunch of full IWDS profiles through the self-service route, or that's how we're going to end up with a bunch of duplicates in the system. So they're made into a pre-record and we're doing a human check to see, do I turn them into a brand new record or are they already in the system and I need to merge their data into an existing profile so we're not creating dupes.
And also, let me ask you this one then. With this, say somebody, female, changed their name and got married and got their last name hyphen or just completely take their name. It still will identify because in the old system, the career advisors, people would tell me it doesn't show who that social security number, and I got to kind of do my little searches and stuff to make sure where is it at. And so sometimes I may even have to ask DCO, can they pull it up and see? Would it not be able to show that person what that person or this person name is coming up under this social security number compared to what you had, what your last name might be? Is that if you're understanding what I'm saying?
Yeah, so when we do our duplicate check, you can add in a lot of data pieces. So it's not just if they change their last name, but you still have a matching first name and date of birth, we're going to get that maiden name back. If you add in other pieces like the last four of the social, email, all that stuff will help refine those and pull back additional results where we're hitting matches on those on. So the duplicate search was built. We're also checking like nicknames. So John versus Johnny. We're expanding that search to look at both so that we're not missing on first name being off just because they told you John, but in the system they were Johnny. You should still be able to get all of that back. We don't display full SSNs, but if we have an SSN for them, you can do the last four and search on that as well.
And we could also update the name if the name was
Yes.
spelled incorrectly and you have all the information in front of you and say, hold up, this name was spelled incorrectly at the time.
Yep. You can go in and edit their profile and fix that name. We do link their accounts to their Illinois WorkNet accounts, and we're going to put a hold. So say the customer Um, in their Illinois WorkNet accounts, they can change their data on their like account, their name and stuff. If we have them synced to an IWDS record, if they go to do that, we're going to put a message that says, talk to your career planner to update any of this information. That way we don't have customers deciding, I don't want to be Olivia Miller anymore. I want to be Purple Red and changing it. Now we can't find them in our system. So we're going to try to filter in some of that stuff from the career planner level so customers don't get lost and we don't have a mismatch of data across IWDS and Illinois WorkNet accounts. What if two people have the same last four of their SSN? You would see both of the results back in the search. We're putting you on during application. You can enter in their full social security number if they opt to give that. We're just not displaying the full SSN um, on the customer lists.
Oh, Cassie.
Hi, Kelly and Olivia. Could you go to the point where you merged the customer? I just wanted to see something to Sandy's point.
Okay. Yes.
I think it was Scarlett.
So if we were to merge
Yeah,
this one.
so we want to view it first
Mhm.
because I was thinking about what she said. Is it somewhere where you can see the last 4 days social to know that it's the same person before you merge this?
Yes, we will have that included. We are at the point in the application where we're putting in the social security number. So we
Okay.
need to pull in the private information as well. We just haven't got that built out in development, but we can display that in this little view. If you click on that, yeah. We can have a private information section that can open and display. I believe it's like the last four of their SSN,
Okay.
race, ethnicity, um,
Okay.
gender, all that kind of stuff. So you
Yeah.
can have that to look at as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. We just want to make sure we merging the right people.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
thank you.
Great question.
Uh, we'll note that too and make sure we get that private information section added. I believe Andy G, you have some work to update the profile. after the application work is done, just overlay it with the new stuff. That can fall into that work of just making sure we're bringing in the updated profile pieces into the preview for the dupe search.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions on the duplicate search right now, or do we want to move into education and employment outcomes?
Just a quick question on the previous screen.
Oh, yeah.
When you view, are you able to somehow view both at the same time, like side by side, or do you have to toggle between the two?
At this time, you have to toggle between the two.
Okay.
So would like a compare function or something where you
Yeah,
can
like
compare both of these?
or having like if you click on the bottom one on the eye, that it would pop up on the right side of the first one somehow, or something where you can compare it, right? Because otherwise you're toggling back and forth and you're going,
Like
uh,
you're talking about like a split screen to show both?
yeah, something that where you can see it all in one place. Because sometimes, like right now in the iWatch right now, if we see like four Scarlet Adams, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
going, well, is this the same person? You have to go into one, write
Mm-hmm.
everything down or screenshot everything, and then do a search again, and then go in to the second one, and then write everything down, because then you don't know if the third one is one of the two, right? So you're continually going back and forth. So if there was a way that you could, if two show up or three show up or four show up that look like they're the same person, to be able to compare them side by side so you can identify, nope, these two are not the same, these two are not the same. This one is same as this one, but not this one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can make that note, Paul, for like a compare functionality.
That'd be wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Well, we will move into the employment and education outcomes next. So now this is a little bit different portion of the system. But what we're going to look at to be able to add an outcome, both education and employment, a customer has to have an application. Okay. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can work with these individuals here that have an application, or an easier way to get here too is probably just to go directly to this applications button. But you'll be able to see in this case, I've got Scarlett who has an application. We'll continue using her. So this will bring me to her customer profile. And when we scroll down, here's her applications section. And I can go to view her application here. So from there, on the application summary, I can start taking a deeper look at which area I want to work in. In this case, we're going to go into the outcomes portion. And from here, this breaks outcomes out into their respective categories. So for this UAT, we are focusing on education and employment outcomes. So I'm going to start with employment. You'll have any information here of their past employment to be able to look at. Let's say Magnificent Mile Trucking, I need to get, like make an edit here. If I click the little eyeball, that's going to bring up the details, which then is going to open up the edit functionality here. So let's say, we got something wrong. They actually started, later in the month. I want to update that, or if you find out that they left that one, you can add some other things here. The ones that are with the red asterisk are the required pieces, but not everything is required. You'll be able to enter your ONET code and your NAICS codes with the search function. So if you know what your code is, awesome, you can enter that in. Otherwise, you can do a search. You can also down here at the bottom add documents related to their employment and hit save if you make some changes. One other thing, just so you guys saw here, and this is noted in the UAT guide, whenever you're working in one of these areas of the system right now, when you save or exit, it takes you back to this credentials page. That is currently being fixed. So hopefully, even as you're testing, we hopefully have some of those things updated here soon. But if that happens right now, we are aware of it, but feel free to note it as well. The other thing we are aware of when it pops you back to the credentials page, this is getting fixed. Now my employers aren't showing up. So we're getting that piece updated. So as you're testing, keep an eye on that. But when it comes to employment, if you are adding a new one as you're testing, go ahead and come in and you can take turns adding different employments in here. So let's say you are able to, as you're testing, to add employment. When you're searching, it's going to search both our like ETPL list and it's going to search Dun and Bradstreet. Okay, so if I search that down there and hit search, I don't have anything in entity management that's populating, but I have a bunch of trucking LLCs under the Dun and Bradstreet. So as you see which one you are needing to add to their employment, you'll click over here and then you can do continue use selected. Let's say in the event that the employer did not show up here, at that point you can do continue and add employer. Okay, let me finish going through this real quick and then we can look at some questions in the chat. So similar to when you're adding that employment, as we looked at with editing employment, it does have those different pieces here. We've got different wage types. So we've got by the hour, per year, and then in this trucking example, those that are paid by the mile. So you're able to add that in there. If you change it to mile, it's going to show you miles per week. And update some things there. Okay. What questions? Let me look at the chat here. What is the current? I use with the work history. I believe, yeah, this would be similar to work history, but with the outcomes, am I getting confused by the tab section being called outcomes?
Yeah, sorry. I just because outcomes, I'm thinking like, oh, are these the out like the exit panel, like when we're exiting someone or if they've completed services. So I think that's what was throwing me. Or I was like, oh, are these outcome like employment goals that we're putting in? But then I started creating a job record. So I apologize. I think it's just the nomenclature is kind of throwing me off. So I was thinking, so this would be jobs they've held in the past, right? And then, well, you know, it's a living, breathing kind of document. So it's as they go through our services, if they, you know, get or a different job, and then if they get another job, you know, we can add this like throughout the customer's participation, right? It's not just at the beginning or at the end.
Yeah, so we're going to collect work history during the getting started assessment. This will be employment that they have during program participation. So as you go to add employment, if we see you're adding one from like 5 years ago, you'll get some kind of message or alert that it's outside of the participation period. That is what the employment section is looking at, is your outcomes that are employment related either during or after that follow-up period after being in the program. We'll have another place where we collect work history.
That's what I thought. Okay, because I remember seeing something. I'm like, well, I think there was jobs that for some in some of those profiles for the screening or intake. So it seemed like there would be two different places, but that's okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to confirm. Sorry about that.
Okay. David, you had your hand up.
Yeah, similar question to Rory. So when we're looking at the employment in the outcomes section, will it capture data from IDES? Will we be able to see that in all caps? In our current version of IWADS, when a client who's in training goes to work somewhere, the employer sends in a new hire report, and we see that in IWADS on the work history. Can you speak to that with IWADS 2.0?
Yeah, so we'll still have that connection to get the employment and wage data. We know that the time frame for that is a little there's a lag there. So you can manually put that employment in, but if we get that same employment record back from IDES, it will be added to the list, and it will be used as the primary employer for wage data calculations.
Yeah, there is that data lag, and sometimes the career planners put it in the system, and then the state reports it to us, and then it's in there twice, and so that'll be an issue we'll want to address at some point.
Yes, I believe Al has some work on that too, as he's working on the third party data. So that's all the IDS data and all the other various data we get from IDS and Swiss on wage data, and we'll make sure that that's incorporated into this as well. We want to continue to encourage folks to add it early if they have it, and not necessarily feel like they have to wait on the wage data, but we know that wage data is coming if we do hit a match on that. So we're continuing to work through how that will layer in to make sure that we're not duplicatively counting anything, and also using the most accurate and up-to-date record for performance calculations.
Okay. Let's see. Paul, let me go over the education tab here now. We can answer your question. Projected end date. I believe we've got one in there. So similar to your employment outcomes, you're also going to be able to add education information or education enrollments. If you're wanting to view ones that are already in there or make some, adjustments, you can do that. So in this case, if I look at the actions or eyeball there, I can view and I can edit that. So let's say you've got an end date or you don't have one right now, you can edit those. You can also add the appropriate files here that support that enrollment or education enrollment document, so you're able to do that. And then down at the bottom, being able to save any of those changes or delete one as well. Will the delete one, Olivia, will that be for everybody or that be role specific? User role specific? Or we have to define that still?
Select the employment type. This to delete an employment record, sorry.
Oh no, this is to delete an education record.
I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be role specific. We are going to be logging everything though. So if it is deleted, we'll be able to know who deleted it and when it was deleted. I'm not sure off the top of my head if there were role permissions put into the requirements of who could see that button.
Okay.
So is this screen comparable to the in-program educational update that we have in our current version of IWADS?
It's similar to the and I'm not 100% sure the screen you're talking of off the top of my head, so I'm going to tell you the screen that I know it is similar to, and maybe we're talking about the same screen. On your post-exit reporting, we can flag for folks who have got employment, or I'm sorry, education outside of what they got through program services, so that we can track the employment or education rate second quarter post-exit and fourth quarter post-exit. So this is giving us a space that we can add education enrollments outside of those that were provided through WIOA so that we can make sure that we're counting that positive performance for especially like our youth who we're not just looking at did they get employed, but also, or did they get enrolled in an educational institution?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so
So
Paul,
the
oh,
the
go ahead.
big thing we wanted to do here is we don't want to have you guys manually have to enter in every quarter that they're at Lincoln Land, that they are at Lincoln Land, third quarter at Lincoln Land. We can add wherever they're at as an educational enrollment record. And then when you go to do your post-exit reporting, you will simply select that from the existing list. And maybe, they're at Lincoln Land Q2 and then they are at UIS Q4. You would add that as an educational enrollment record. And then when you're doing your quarterly reporting, your post-exit reporting, you can select it as a record, very similar to how you would select employment as a record in that same kind of post-exit reporting. So during program participation, the WIOA training and stuff, we're going to be adding all that education information to the services. This would be those education enrollments that happen outside of the services we're providing.
So just to be clear, so could that be so like during follow-up or even during program participation?
Both.
Both.
Yes.
So this would be equivalent to like the service activity we would put in during program would be training non-wheel training funded by non-wheel Title I funds.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we went over how to view one that's currently there and make changes. You'll also be able to add enrollments as well. In this case, this is going to pull from our eligible training providers. So if we're looking for a community college, it's going to search the database for that. And then it's going to pull the appropriate programs associated with that provider. And then from there, able to add those start dates, optional end date, full-time, part-time, upload that supporting enrollment information, and then give some additional info here of kind of what they're focusing on, and then hit save. Or you can go back and say, yes, I want to leave. But it'll pop up a modal there. Okay. What additional questions can we answer? Oh, Kristen, yep, it looks like Lynette's getting you the information on getting credentials, but you can reach out to us if you're running into anything, but we'll keep an eye out to approve your account. Crystal, are you going to be able to enter a provider that isn't on the ETPL?
Yeah, because didn't you just say that this was for taking it is for people who are currently enrolled and also those that have been exited that it's going to pull their information. So, you have if they go on in education on their own outside of WIOA participation, it could very well be at any provider that isn't included on the ETPL. You'd still want to have that information because if it's a youth, they would still get credit for being in an educational situation. But I didn't hear you say that was possible to put one in. I just heard you say you're going to be able to search and it's going to pull from the approved provider list.
Yes, so you can search and it would pull from the approved provider list, but if you do not find it as a search, then you just have to manually enter the data in.
Okay.
There's no data that we could pull to auto-populate at anything. But yes, you're spot on. They don't have to be on the approved provider list at this point because the customer's, doing it on their own.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yes, so that's a great thing to test because it looks like it's going to pull, but you can enter other
Yeah.
ones. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Good.
really just like if we have the data in the system, whenever we can, we're going to try to auto-populate it to minimize having to retype something in that somebody's already, put into the system.
Okay, there we go. Cool. Okay, well, any other additional questions?
I've got a question. This is David.
Oh, perfect.
I'm looking forward to testing these screens. They look good. They look user friendly. Can you help us to understand from a career planner standpoint how quickly they'll be able to see this? They're used to just looking at their exit control panel in IWDS. It shows them those post-quarter exits and what they're doing in terms of work or education. It's not they don't have to dig through a lot of screens to get to it. It's easily accessed right on their main menu. How will they get to the new exit screen, if you will?
So I can talk through that a little bit. Let me actually. So if you want to jump back to the customer profile. So we're working on updating this intake summary page. You can scroll up a little bit, Kelly, just a hair. Okay, so where it says intake summary, we're going to get rid of these tables. We put them there so that we just can access some of the records. We are creating like little to-do cards almost, or little boxes that'll say what the customer has open. So it'll either be a pre-screening or an application that we'll be able to click in once a customer has completed the application. They can then click into that to get into deeper layers of the program application. So this is similar to IWDS where you kind of start with a customer profile and then they can have multiple applications, right? So we want to be able to have closed items on a separate tab that you can get to if you need to see historical data. But from this landing page, you would have a little box in this intake summary section where you would click. And if you want to go ahead and click the eyeball section icon, Kelly, down below, when you click the card to go into the open application, you'll have several areas you could work in. Intake, you can open that drop down. Intake, career plan, outcomes, and follow-up. We want to make this navigation a little easier. So from the previous page, we want to have icons that you could click to go directly to like career plan or outcomes. So you don't have to come in here and like pick an area. So we want to make it easier from the participant summary screen we were just on. And then additionally, within this section, you can navigate through this drop down. And we also, as part of work we did last week, I'm going to steal the screen share, Kelly.
Okay.
So as part of work we're currently working on, so this is like a mock-up of kind of what we're looking at. So we're in the career plan area and we'll have some various tabs you can work in. So there would also be, if you opened it up, it would be outcomes, which Kelly was showing. We also want to include some quick links in the side panel so that you can quickly navigate to any of the sections in the customer's application to manage outcomes, follow up, career plan. So these will have for every item there is in the drop down, there'll be a section you can go to. And then we'll also show all the subsections, which will be the tabs across all the pages so you can quickly jump to those. So we want to allow for ease of navigation from within the customer profile, as well as once you're in like an actual application record, that you can quickly move around the various elements of that application, which are intake, career plan, outcomes, and follow up.
Is there an example that we can see of an outcome screen that where a client has finished training, is in follow-up? Is there a dummy one available to see?
I'm going to pass it back to Kelly. That's what Kelly just had up was that outcome screen.
Part of my job as a performance manager, before a career planner can exit a customer, I have to verify that the credential at exit is in the system, that their employment at exit is in the system. And so, I have to look at every single exit that there is before the career planner can process it.
Okay. I'm going to pass it to Kelly in just 1 minute, but I thought I was sharing my screen, but maybe I wasn't. Did you guys see my screen earlier when I was talking about the quick links?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. We saw it.
Do you want to go ahead and open up, Kelly, your screen and show the outcomes page one time?
Yes.
And then another thing we're working on too is an overview page. So go ahead and go into their application. Yeah. We're also working on an overview page. So like an overview of all of these areas here as action items that need to be completed. That work is going to start up in a couple of weeks to define that. And that might be a place to say like, hey, we like to check off that these things happen in outcomes, and then we can have action items on some of those things. So you can have like a kind of a quick checklist on the overview page that your career planners can be like, okay, I want to make sure I'm getting these things checked off. But this is where we have like, you make sure they have a credential added, a measurable skill gain added if they were triggered and on the hook for that, employment and education records.
And then just a reminder, as you are testing outcomes for education and employment, you have to work with one that has an application. So choose one of these that has an application or goes to this application section here, because you're not able to add outcomes without that, without an application. Okay. Any other questions? Or, I mean, otherwise, I'm going to send out an email with all of the access to these different things. And just remember, you have your IWDS project page, and then we've got your full resources tab here where I've linked the ones we are active in to kind of help make that a little bit easier versus before we were kind of navigating through all of these things, but we also didn't want to take these away from you in case you wanted to go back and look at them. So closed resources are down here and your current resources are up here. So to kind of help with that piece. And then again, your UAT guide looks a little bit different than in the past because it walks through the steps in a more finer detail, but your quick start guides are kind of like the step-by-step guides that give you screenshots and are designed to walk through, and think of those being in the hands of your career planners when we are live. So thanks, Crystal. You were an inspiration on it. Okay. Well, like we always say, feel free to reach out to us as you start testing. We want to make sure that you feel supported in this piece and have the right resources. And yeah, do not feel shy if you need to reach out to us just to kind of get the ball rolling. We can absolutely hop on a quick call, make sure you feel comfortable. The worst thing for us is if we go through a UAT and we find out somebody kind of had to, ran into a roadblock and didn't get to test. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So make sure to reach out to us if you need.